welcome to tonight's event. Great to see so many people out. Holiday weekend and the last real weekend of summer to come really talk about really important things happening in the world and what we might be able to do from Baltimore to help support them. My name is John. I'm a founding worker owner here at Rojava. We are a worker cooperative. We're a self-managed democratic workplace. For us, it's really exciting to see some of the principles that we based this little tiny space around being applied at a much greater scale and under much harsher conditions elsewhere in the world. We're going to hear about what's going on in Rojava tonight, which is really, really inspiring, and I really wish more people knew about what was happening there, both because they need our support, but also because we need to learn from what's going on there in terms of how we think about the society we want to see. I want to let you know about a couple of events we've got coming up before I turn it over to our moderator and our panel. We have a lot of really interesting international events coming up in the next month, and then a really amazing book event at the end of the month. So we will be hosting next Thursday, September 10th, a really exciting traveling roadshow of anarchists from around the world, mostly Western and Eastern Europe and the United States. That's going to be, it's been organized in conjunction with a small publication called To Change Everything, which you can grab for free up here if you're browsing the books later on. That's going to be a really exciting discussion, also getting into kind of self-managed alternative visions of society and how to put them into practice under less than ideal conditions. We then have coming up for a really exciting view of what's been going on across what he's calling the Greater Arabia in this talk. We have Vijay Prashad, who's a really incredible anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist scholar who has really done a lot to try and stitch together a synthetic kind of critique of the way geopolitics and imperial power and neoliberalism is playing out across the Middle East and North Africa and beyond. So we're really excited to be welcoming Vijay here. He'll be back. He actually spoke at a fundraiser for this new space, so we're really excited to show him what we've done. And then at the end of the month, the 25th through 27th, we're going to be hosting our annual Radical Book Fair Pavilion. That's going to be down in the Inner Harbor, and there's going to be some really, really incredible speakers. I won't go into the whole thing. If you're curious, you go to bookfair.redms.org. You can see everybody. But I will say we are going to be having a release party for D. Watkins' book, The Beast Side. D. Watkins, amazing local author, kind of blowing up like crazy, which was really exciting to see. He basically wrote a lot of this book sitting here at Rojava, so it's exciting to see it kind of taking off in the world. We'll be hosting a party down at the book fair on the first night for that. I also want to just mention that we'll be having Sherry Moraga, who's the editor of a really incredible collection called This Bridge Called My Back, writings by radical feminists of color, radical women of color. Really amazing, amazing, influential book. It was published in the 1980s and has been a sort of touchstone for so much. And we're really, really excited to have her presenting a brand new edition of that at the Radical Book Fair Pavilion at the end of September. So again, lots more beyond that going on all the time. Sign up for our mailing list if you're not already on it. There's a sign up sheet up here so you can find out about all the stuff that we got going on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator for tonight, Foot.
Hi, everyone. It's really good to see such a large crowd turn out that's interested in this event. I've done a lot of promotion for it, and I'm very happy to see so many people who want to know about what's going on in Rojava and Syria. And one way I thought about talking about to start this presentation, well, first, let me introduce our speakers. To my left is Omer Pacal. He is a member of the HDP, the People's Democratic Party in Turkey, in Bakur, which is northern Kurdistan. To his left is Golala Arya. She is originally from Rojava, that's eastern Kurdistan in Iran. And finally, we have Ruken Işık. She is also from Bakur, from Turkey, and she's part of the language, literacy and culture program at UMBC, and is also involved with the Genders and Women's Studies program there. For those who are just getting here now, we have some handouts over here on the desk to explain some of the many list of acronyms that are associated with the struggle that can be quite confusing, even for someone who's read a lot about it, as well as a map of Rojava and Greater Kurdistan. But I was thinking about how to begin this talk and introduce the situation. And one unfortunate tragedy among countless tragedies that are involved in the Syrian civil war in Rojava, a lot of people became aware of the unfortunate death of Alan Kurdi, a small toddler who washed up on the beach of a Turkish resort. It's very, can you hear me? Can I be louder, Mike?
No, I got it.
Okay. So he unfortunately perished along with his mother and brother out in sea when they were trying to cross from Turkey to the Greek island of Kos. Their story actually is very symbolic of the entire conflict and the entire struggle that Kurds have faced in Syria. So originally, his father, Abdullah Kurdi, had a shop in Damascus. He's originally from Kobani, and he was living in Damascus, and he was arrested by the Air Force intelligence services there under the Ba'athist Assad government. And he was detained for 5 months. In detainment, he was tortured. His teeth were pulled. He eventually had his business in Damascus sold so that he'd come up with about $25,000 US to bribe his way out of detention. So once he got released from detention, he then moved his family to the largest city in Syria, Aleppo, which has an extremely large Kurdish community there called Işık. But as the war progressed, the Free Syrian Army and Islamic Front and other forces managed to take about half of the city, while the other half of the city is controlled by the Assad-Ba'athist regime, who proceeded to use airstrikes on Aleppo to attempt to remove the rebels. So in that situation, Abdullah Kurdi and his family decided they would once again become internally displaced, and they would move back to his hometown of Kobani. So shortly after, when they arrived in Kobani, the Islamic State, often called Daesh, because that's what their initials are in Arabic, decided to attack Kobani. And with that fight, once again, they decided to be refugees and leave Kobani to cross the border into Turkey. Like many Kurds, the Kurdi family did not have legal citizenship in Syria, despite having lived all their lives there. The Assad government kept getting them without any kind of actual paperwork. So upon their entry into Turkey, they are effectively stateless, and Turkey was not granting them exit visas. They were trying to become refugees and go to Canada, and because his wife's sister was living there, but they were not able to do that. They had decided to go back to Kobani, but when they'd gone back to Kobani after it had been liberated by the white regime, the Islamic State once again sent in fighters to commit a terrorist attack and kill hundreds of people. So once again they returned to Turkey, and then once again were trying to leave the country. So they tried 3 times to leave, and eventually on that last time, I think they spent about $5,000 to, much more than it would cost them to fly out. So they could try to just get on a boat to get across to Kos. The boat itself was very dangerous. The life preservers they were given were in fact fake. And when the storms picked up, the pilot of the boat abandoned ship, leaving them to their fate. And eventually, he saw his whole family slip away into the waves. So he was there for about 3 hours before he was finally rescued and made his way back to Turkey. And now he's returned to Kobani to bury his family. So I really think this is a poignant story because it shows the difficulty that Kurds have in Syria, in Turkey, in Iraq, and in Iran, with just surviving all their lives, and also the tragedy that is the Syrian civil war. But it's not all bad. There's an amazing thing going on in northern Syria, in Rojava. That's the northern Kurdish Syria. And about an organization called the PKK, which has been fighting in Turkey since the 1970s, which was a standard Marxist-Leninist organization trying to fight a people's war, a national liberation struggle against the Turkish government at a time where it was illegal to speak Kurdish. There were no kind of civil rights for Kurds. It was a military dictatorship, so there was actually no democracy or parliamentary process to participate in, which is the climate that the PKK emerged out of. The history of the PKK, eventually the leader of the organization, Abdullah Öcalan, was captured in 1999, and after he was captured and found himself on an island prison surrounded by 1,000 Turkish soldiers, he was able to read, and he got exposed to different books, and he was reassessing the movement and what they'd accomplished and what they failed to do, as well as the failure of the Soviet Union to sustain an actual communist society. And among the authors that he explored to question his ideas and find a new inspiration was a social anarchist from Vermont, Murray Bookchin. We have some of his books here at the store. You can check them out. We also have a number of books here, up front here, about democratic autonomy in Bakur, in Turkish Kurdistan, and also a book, Small Key, Can Open a Large Door, which is specifically about the revolution in Rojava. So he got inspired by those ideas and other ideas, took inspiration from the Zapatistas and elsewhere, and changed the ideology of the organization to something he's called democratic confederalism, which combines libertarian socialism, libertarian institutionalism, social ecology, radical feminism, into a new vision of what they need to be accomplishing. Some of our other speakers will go more into what that ideology is and what it means. But an organization that was affiliated with the PKK, the PYD, the People's Democratic Union, formed up after 2003, and then really became public with its armed forces, the YPG, with the Syrian civil war. Some of you may have heard about the situation with the Sinjar, a pre-Islamic religious and ethnic community in Iraq, and all the thousands of people that were trapped on the mountain with the Islamic State coming to kill them, rape them, sell them into sexual slavery, and that many of those people were in fact saved by a joint operation by the PKK from Iraq and the YPG coming from Rojava to open a corridor to allow refugees to escape. Other people also may have heard about the valiant defense the YPG and YPJ made of Kobani, the central canton of Rojava, and what a heroic fight that was this last year. And most recently in the news is this refugee crisis. So a lot of what they've been able to do is set up these autonomous cantons and experiment both with local democracy, much different than the centralized management that they face from the Ba'athist state, and also with radical experiments in alternative economics. After the revolution, the Ba'athist state collapsed in northern Syria, and in its absence, Rojava and its administration, Tebdim, the Movement for Democracy, set up an alternate structural organization. And most of the property, the big capital, the large farms, the oil wells, the hydroelectric dam, a large $700 million concrete plant, all of those were owned by the state under the Ba'athist regime, but ended up being controlled specifically by the party and by cronies that are loyal to certain families. Kurds weren't allowed to participate in the management of any of that. So with the collapse of the Ba'athist regime in that area, they've taken it over and declared all of this property part of the commons. That means it's socially owned by Tebdam, the people as a whole, and they then lend it out to private enterprise to do with it what they want under the rules that Tebdam democratically agrees with society. Of that 2/3 of capital that is now part of the commons, about 1/3 has been turned into workers' cooperatives. So that's a very exciting thing. Another exciting thing about the revolution is the prominent role women have been playing in all parts of the revolution. Not just in the armed forces, the YPJ, which gets so much coverage in the news, but also in every aspect of the democratic society. They require a 40% participation of women at the assembly level of every organization, and they require co-chairs at every level of organization. So if there's a governor of a canton, there must also be a woman governor of a canton. If there is, an enterprise that's workers' cooperative, it must have 2 co-chairs. And we actually see this replicated in the other organizations that are part of this Kurdish freedom movement that are affiliated or inspired some way by the ideology of Abdullah Öcalan. So with that presentation, I'm going to turn things over to Ruken, who will be talking to us a bit about the situation in Rojava and then also the women's movement.
Hi everyone. First I'd like to thank Rojava for hosting us, and thanks to Flint for organizing, and for all of you for coming tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. To hear I thank Rojava and Flint and for all of you for coming here tonight. So, as an introduction, I'd like to start by locating Kurdistan and Kurds on the world map. I think you have a small little map over there. So, historically, Kurds were living, before the World War I, they were living in eastern and southeastern Turkey, and under the western Iran, northern Iraq, and northern Syria. So these are the historical lands that Kurds were inhabiting before, even now they inhabit them, they live there, but they were not divided into 4 parts. But after World War I, when the British and the French, they withdrew from the Middle East, the new modern nation states emerged in the Middle East. And Kurds were divided in 4 parts: Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. So in I'm from Turkey, Kurdistan. We call it Bakur, but I'm going to say Turkey, Kurdistan, so I don't want to confuse you all. There are a lot of different words. I was born in Eastern Turkey, and I just wanted to tell a little bit about the official state ideology in Turkey until 2000. The official Turkish state's ideology in Turkey until 2000 was based on a theory that we call Kart-Kürt. I don't know if you haven't had snow in your hometowns, or if you haven't walked on the snow. That means that, so we were called mountain Turks. We're mountain Turks, and the sound that you make when you walk on the snow, Kart-Kürt, so our name came from there. So this was the state ideology, the official ideology, that our name, Kurds, were coming from there, the sound that you make when you walk on the snow. The Kart-Kürt theory, it was, until 2002, it was the official ideology, but then it changed. It changed now, we became the sisters and brothers with the Turks, according to the Turkish state. But that part, Omer is going to feel that part, but just in 2000, I'd like to tell you about my experiences. I was a university student in Istanbul, and Kurdish students and also Turkish students, we the ones that were close to us and the ones that supported us, we launched a language campaign, and we petitioned the universities for an elective Kurdish course, elective course. You can do it here, Spanish, Italian, any language, you can do that. Because of this petition, I was jailed for 5 months, and I was expelled from the university for 2 years. And after 5 months, I was released, but then my case went to the European Union. It's still over there. They haven't solved that. I'm waiting for some compensation from the Turkish state, but I don't know. So this is my short story. And the situation in Syria, in Syrian Kurdistan, was not better than the Kurds living in Turkey. Actually, it was worse. It was worse because Kurds in Turkey have been organized. We are organized politically, and we have organizations. We have youth movement, women's movement. I think it's a strong movement in Turkey, inside Turkey. So in Syria, let me just give you some information about Syria. So before the 2011 uprisings in Syria, there were 23 million people living in Syria. I don't know how many left in Syria right now. So out of 23 million, 4 million Kurds were living in Syria, and they are the second largest ethnic group in Syria, inside Syria. You may have known about the Baath regime. That was Saddam Hussein was also from the Baath regime, and also Assad families also they are coming from this Ba'athist regime. And during the Ba'athist regime, you know what happened in Iraq, in Halabja in 1988. 5,000 people just died after the chemical attacks in Halabja. Like 5,000 people died just one day. But same thing was happening in Syria was a little different. So in Syria, what the Ba'athist regime did was try to stage a campaign, the Arabization, we call it Arabization campaign, in north part of Syria, try to bring Arab, try to actually form Arab villages in between very strategic Kurdish towns, like in between them, to cut the ties with all Kurds. So like, I think you have this, there's a line, like, so the Syrian Kurdistan is like a line that goes along the Syrian, Turkish border in the north part of the Syria. So in that border, like in between this, now there's 3 cantons in between that, so they just put located all this Arabs over there, and then they had this land reform, and all the area, like, sort of, they tried to stage this Arabization campaign over there. And so, like, in 60s and 70s, because of this Arabization, by the way, because of the Ba'athist regime, 150,000 Kurds in Syria were stripped of their identities. And now it is estimated to be like 500,000, so like 500,000 Kurds, they don't have even an ID, official ID. And most of the people now who are refugees in Turkey cannot be refugees because they don't have an ID from Syria. And also, as I said, because of the 60s, 70s, so 150,000 people were stripped of their identities. So when we came to the 2011, the popular uprisings in Syria happened, and actually Kurds, they wanted to take a different path. They didn't want to fight with the Assad regime because they had fought with them and they had been tortured. Even there are a lot of politicians that we don't know their whereabouts, like they were just captured and arrested, and we don't know what happened to them still till this day. So like Kurds have suffered under the regime, and when the uprising started, Kurds didn't want to be the part of the uprisings that much because the uprisings and the opposition that we know that they formed, they were not inclusive of the Kurdish identity, or like they were not an alternative to the Assad regime. That was a problem. So like Kurds from the beginning they said, if we want to have an alternative to this Assad regime, we have to have a different system. It should not be like Kurds coming and then oppressing the Arabs, or like another minority comes to the power, like maybe Islamists, they come to the power and then they're gonna oppress the Alawites. No, Kurds said no, we don't want this. If we're gonna have a system, if you're gonna topple him, Assad, we should have a different system. It's not gonna be the same that we had before. And in January 2014, the Kurds, together with other components of Rojava, like Syrian, Assyrians, Alawites, Arabs, Turkmens, Yazidis, all the minorities in Syria, they come together and they declared the Rojava democratic autonomy. But as we may have heard last year what happened, so they declared in 2014 January, and last year and this year still ISIS, the so-called Islamic State, they have been attacking, and also the Turkish state has been like helping them actually, help ISIS terrorists like gangs. They call them gangs in the local areas, I'm going to use gangs. They let them to cross from Turkey into Syria and attack these villages, people, kill a lot of people, children and women, rape them. So they are pretty much covered by the Western media, and we have seen that all over the place. So the 2014, the Rojava autonomous region, the autonomous cantons actually, the democratic ones, they were declared by the PYD, the Democratic Union Party. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So the Democratic Union Party, which is a big supporter of this autonomous project in Rojava, it was established in 2003 in Northern Syria, in the Rojava. When they just established their party. Their party was mostly like, as I said, the Rojava that we have now. Like they were trying to, they had this women's equality, and then they had all like they wanted to like not just be a party for Kurds only, but also be inclusive of all elements inside Syria. And when they established their party in 2003, in 2004 they started the uprising actually. So like we think that the uprisings in Syria started in 2011. Actually no, for Kurds it started in 2004. And in the uprisings in Kamishlo, it's a city, it's a Kurdish city in Syria, so many people died in that uprisings. And then after and 2,000 members of the PYD, the Democratic Union Party, were arrested, as I said at the beginning. So we still don't know the whereabouts of many members, many leaders in that party. We don't know that. As I said, the Kurds didn't want to be the part of the Syrian opposition from the beginning because they were not inclusive. They were so single-minded, and there are not women in there. Like you can't see any components that Rojava is proposing, and they don't have anything like that. So for the preparation for democratic autonomy actually started in 2013. So they declared in 2014, but they started to work on that in 2013. So a year before. It was not just happened in just one night. They were working with the Assyrians, and then the Alawites, Christians over there, Yazidis. They all like formed the system that they call it the Constitutive General Council of the Joint Inter-Administration. Administration is English, the Kurdish acronym for KERDEM. So I will tell you what the democratic autonomy actually means in Syria. Like what does it mean? Because democratic autonomy is based on the ideology of the Abdullah Öcalan. Abdullah Öcalan is the leader of the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party. He has been in jail since 1998. He's a captain in an island near Istanbul by himself since 1998. So according to his ideology, like he proposed this autonomous project, and then it says the nation state aims at creating a single national culture, a single national identity, and a single unified religious community. Thus, it also enforces a homogeneous citizenship. The notion of citizen has been created as a result of the search for such homogeneity. Democratic autonomy is a flexible, multicultural, anti-monopolistic, and consensus-oriented. In the frame of this kind of self-administration, an alternative economy will become necessary, which increases the resources of the society instead of exploiting them, and thus injustice to the manifold needs of the society. And like based on that, they formed a self-governance that will allow the legal participation of all this race, class, gender. Maybe like we are familiar with intersectionality in the United States. Yeah, they don't name it intersectionality, but I can say that it's an embodiment of intersectionality that has been put in practice in Rojava, in Northern Syria. And by the way, there are a lot of different parties in Kurdistan that are opposed to this. They say like, well, we have been suffered as Kurds. You know, we should have our own Kurdistan. This is like we have this opportunity. You know, there's war, but we should just have our country and just don't think about other elements. But the PYD leadership and also the other parties, they support them. They say no, we don't want a nation state because we have been suffered under the regimes of like Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. This nation states. If you want to have an alternative, it should not be nation states. We don't want nation states. We don't want Kurds oppress the others, or like Kurds govern the Arabs, or like Kurds govern the Alawites. No, everyone can just. They don't use governorate. By the way, they use administration. You know, we can administer ourselves. Like it should be equal, and it should be bottom up, not top down. And the democracy model that they project in Rojava is different. So they don't want any top down like democracy. We have to organize everyone. Like they have the city council, village council, women councils. They have so many different things over there. And the name So now they have 3 cantons, Afrin, Jazira, and Kobani canton. The name canton comes from the French word district. It comes from there, and then they just applied it to the area. And in that cantons, actually, the women, they have like women ministries, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So since 2005, Kurdish women in Syria have been organizing themselves politically and militarily under the roof of United Stars. These are the Kurdish women forces. At the same time, the gender egalitarian system in Rojava is unprecedented in many ways. Women in Rojava believe that this system can be the only system that can enable them freedom, especially in the Middle East. Like, it really gives them a lot of freedom. Not someone actually gives them, they're just taking this, they are just practicing it by themselves. There are 22 ministries in each of these local cantons, and women's ministry is one of them. Each canton has a council of ministers, which is run by one male and one female co-leader. They have this co-leadership everywhere. Like, if there is a man, there have to be a woman. Or like if there is a Kurdish leader, co-leader, the other one has to be like Syrian, Assyrian, Alawite, something, you know, like just represent the ethnic minorities, like ethnic diversity in Rojava. So, and they have 3 deputies who represent local diversity. For instance, an Assyrian woman, Elizabeth Korean, was elected the co-leader of Jazira canton, and Kurdish woman Hevi Ibrahim was appointed prime minister of Afrin canton. Each canton has its own defense system, and a woman in that defense system has a separate military organizing named as YPG. It is its acronym for the Women's Women's Defense Forces. And we have seen a lot of these Kurdish fighters in the mass media. They are portrayed like these women are fighting against Islamic State. They don't like to call themselves fighters when you talk to them. I'm part of the project. I'm collecting the stories of Kurdish women, and I talked to the 2 YPG fighters past 2 weeks. They don't want to be called as fighters. They say, because we're not fighters, we're defending ourselves, our lands and women. And when I ask them, like, what do you think about what do you think about the situation over there? What gives you power? Like, what do you think about the women's agency? This kind of questions, and it's very interesting. They don't just think themselves like Kurdish. Like the woman, she was a senior YPG commander. She said, like, when I fight with this against this Islamic State, I don't want to call it gang soldiers. I'm sorry, I'll just use the gang. So she says, I think that I always have like an American woman on my shoulder, like German women, Spanish women. Like she says, I never feel myself as a Kurdish woman in this fight. She said this fight is not just for the Kurdish people, this fight is for humanity and for all women actually. So they wanted to create a system and to show the world that this is possible, we can do that. And so in this cantons they have women's shelters, but when I talk to them they say like they are having problems because there are a lot of trafficking, women's trafficking in Syria happening now. All of these women are protecting themselves, like defending themselves, but you know this trafficking, women's trafficking is so horrible. Even when you go to the border towns in Syria, Turkey, where refugees are, I heard a story, they say like a lot of, there were like bumper stickers on behind the car saying that, oh, I don't need you, my alternative is a Syrian. So, you know, like if they can't get a woman from Turkey, the Turkish men now think that if they can't get a woman in Turkey, they'll just get a woman from like Syria because they pay for that, or like they just marry them. And most of them are like the second wives in Turkey. That's a horrible situation. Like we don't, because of the other dire situations, we don't come to and see those problems, but women are having a lot of problems in like the refugees in Turkey. They have a lot of problems with that. And so I think I pretty much covered. I should stop here, but there are a lot of things that, but I think these were the major things I wanted to talk. I don't want to read from the papers. boring thing, I know. So if you have more questions, I'm willing to answer them at the end. But I think, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Let's save the questions till the end, because other speakers probably might answer some of the questions you might have. So next we'll go to Omer.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. Well, I would like to go a little bit about So I'm going to go a little bit about the transformation of the PKK ideology and how we come this point of today. So I think so there's going to be the enlight or the understanding of the Rojava and the current situation of the Rojava plus in Turkey. So let me mention about the PKK. Well, PKK was founded in 1978 as a Marxist, Leninist, nationalist liberation organization. So there was from 78 until, let me say, 2000, these are the main paradigm of the PKK. So there was they were focused on the first national liberation and classless society. So they have two strategies. One of them to obtain the power of the state. There's a first goal to have the power of the state, create a nation state. Through the nation state and the element of the power of the nation state to create a class society. It was very famous at that time. It was very common around the world, in Latin America, in Cuba, around the world. There was the main motto for all those nation liberation movement. But there was let me say, so 1992-93, there was something changed. Especially 1990, something changed. There's an internal and external dynamic impact on the PKK. So the force the PKK, it changed its ideology, its structure, its everything. What is the 1990? What's the external dynamic? The external dynamic, one of them is the collapse of the communist system. And then 1990, the communist system lost its popularity. And then, and then the neoliberal, the politics was practiced in Turkey, in everywhere. So those are many of us knows the external dynamic in 1990, how the effect on the socialist movement around the world, not only PKK, around the world. And then another internal dynamic. So what's the internal dynamic? The force the PKK changed its ideology was let me say, it was 1990, there was around 3,000 Kurdish village was being destroyed by the Turkish state. And then around 4 million people forced internal immigrants. So they just moved to west of the Turkey, different city of the Turkey, and etc. So a lot of different things happening in Turkey. So all those external and internal dynamics forced the PKK. And so it's very, I think so, very clear. There was a slogan, let me say, motto happened in Turkey. I think so that's identifying. So what happened in Kurdish region in Turkey, because PKK was from 1978 organized mostly among the, let me say, peasant, villager, sharecroppers, student, and poor urban workers. But the base of the PKK was a peasant, not a villager. So all this, the peasant, the villager was main base of the PKK. But after that I say 3,000 or 4,000 Kurdish villages being destroyed by Turkish state, PKK get a problem as well. So there was at that time Turkish general, how they described the issue of the fighting PKK. He said, so there was a slogan of one of the Chinese communists. He said that. He said, look, the Turkish general. So the PKK was a kind of fish, and all those villages, all those Kurdish people around those areas are ocean. So we cannot catch fish in the ocean. So we have to find a way to drain this ocean. So that's one of the main, I think, so the crux of that argument. They destroyed all the Kurdish village and then forced the Kurds to be immigrant to west of the Turkey. So all those internal dynamics to force the PKK to change its ideology. So what was a start, there was the best time, I think so, for PKK, but there was initiative, I mean, 1993, when we look at the Rojava and his interview with the Turkish journalists and then different things, he's mentioning about the different things. So there's the social, I mean, he said at that time, the interview, he said, well, PKK, we have to adopt, PKK has to adopt and need ideology in order to survive as an independent movement. Otherwise, we cannot survive. So all those that happened, I mean, to affect the impact on the PKK. So PKK 1999, Öcalan, one of his main book in defense of the people. So in Turkish, they say "Bir halkı savunma." So there was the main his defense to European Human Rights Court, and from his book, what he analyzed and he reassessed all those socialist and communist movement and Marxist ideology and modernism and postmodern scholar, and then anarchist philosophy and feminist as well. So he reassessed all those. Thinker and philosopher, and he come up with a very comprehensive ideology, very comprehensive framework for part of the Kurdistan. Let me say at the beginning. So in 1978, when the PKK's declaration, foundation declaration was said, so PKK was a Marxist Leninist, fighting for the united socialist Kurdistan. So united four part of the Kurdistan, because PKK saw as a Kurdistan as a colony. So colony of the Kurds, colony of the all those other states. So the only way to fight was a guerrilla warfare. So there's the background. So what happened? So 1978 to 2000. So in 2000, that I say, the Öcalan come up with a different comprehensive ideology. Say, wow. So we are not going to force nation state. Why we are not going to fight for nation state? We say all those civilization and his civilization understanding, history. He said the nation state was let me say retrogressive factor for the human's evolution. So it became a barrier. So we cannot spend on energy or effort for the state, nation state. It's a handicap. So it's a kind of pitfall for the revolutionist, for socialist movement. So we have to find a different way. So he come up with that. He said democratic modernization. So democratic modernization. So when he criticized the existing modernization, he said, well, that's modernization because at that time. So just keep in mind, 2000, there was a lot of criticism of the modernization, especially from postmodernists, from different neoliberal scholars. There was a lot of criticism, attack on the modernization. What he said, Öcalan said, well, we still need the modernization, but we have to have a different modernization because the existing modernization was an interest of the ruling class, capitalist class. So, but we have to have a modernization for the interest of the people, for poor people, for etc. So, and then he formulated as a democratic modernization. So, from that understanding of the modernization and reframe that modernization of the history of the revolution. So he said, so there's and he come up with a comprehensive strategy for each part of the Kurdistan, for Rojava, Baku. So those are Kurdish ports, of course, for Kurdistan in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. So, and then he said, so we're going to have a democratic confederal system. So instead of, we are not going to touch any border of the nation, the existing state, but we're going to create a system to be alternative to those existing systems. So let me give an example. So Öcalan, so what's his focus? He said, instead of spend on energy or effort to destroy the state, the Turkish state, or Iraqi state, or Iranian state, let's create an alternative system. So how are we going to create alternative system? For example, if they have a court, let me put our court. Let we have our own education. And those things, I mean, practiced in Kurdistan as well. We have right now some schooling in Turkey, I mean, the Kurdish school in Turkey, and still, I mean, even we just had today, I mean, so there's some court as well. They try to create alternative system, institution, in order to undermine the state power. Because there was the understanding of the Öcalan, what he say, well, so when state or apparatus of the state, institutional state, when they involve or relation, they reproduce themselves. So if we go to Turkish court, well, so they reproduce itself, they spread itself. Instead of that, that we have, so that system, that Öcalan, the alternative system, is not legal, but legitimate. So that's the principle of the essential to be legitimate, not legal. Because you cannot have legal court in Turkey, so where there's existing, the state over there. But you can create find a different way to find different solution for your problem instead of going to Turkish court. And then there was a kind of, so all those practice of the ideology of the PKK or Öcalan. So, and then I say, so each Kurdistan, each part of Kurdistan has a different solution, but the solution should be based on the anti-capitalist, anti-industrialist, and then women emancipatory, and those are the basic and no hierarchical relation, and then etc. So those are the basic principle of the new system. So why we are talking about Rojava? But there is some example of that new political strategy implemented in Turkey as well. Some local, where PKK or the Kurdish movement is very strong. So you can see that that kind of things as well. It's not only Rojava. It's right now ongoing clash or fight in Turkey. That's kind of based on that one as well. So what happened in Rojava? Those are the main theory, main philosophy of the Öcalan was to find the place, especially after 2011 uprising of the Syria. Well, there was a, let me say, so don't forget, so that was 2002 when Turkish, AKP, Turkish ruling party, when they come to power. At that time there was an agreement between Turkey and Syria, Assad regime. They called it Ankara Agreement. That agreement based on the security. So according that, so after that agreement, even the Syria regime give the Turkish state around 200 PKK or PYD members, political activists who are from Turkey, but they are working, they were working in the Rojava or the Rojava revolution. So there was so the relation between Turkey and Syria before was at the base of the anti-Kurdish the element of that agreement. So Rojava is a so the Kurds find PKK, Kurds or Kurdish political organization find Rojava as the best place to implement that new theory, new ideology. So which is like autonomy, democratic, ecologist, the system, new system. So was that, so 2011 when uprising started, the PKK, at that time there was a, peace process between PKK and Turkey. So PKK, invest a lot of its resource over that. Send its member or the Kurdish activists from north of Kurdistan in Turkey, they went to that, and then a lot of all the Kurdish activists, they went to them and tried to help the uprising in Syria to pull that new system, new political system, find a way. So, but definitely at the beginning there was not the goal to fighting, to have guerrilla warfare at the beginning. The beginning was that the idea was, just pull that peaceful, the region in north of Syria. But everything happened, ISIS, after ISIS, there's no chance Kurd had to take up the arm and fight against ISIS. So those, right now in Rojava there are 3 cantons we can mention that we call the Jazira canton, which is northeast of the Syria, we have a Kobani, there's a middle, and we have, of course, Afrin. So Afrin is one of the northwest. But still, we haven't, right now the main problem, there's no connection between Kobani and Afrin. So over there, there's a Jarablus and then Azaz. There are two others. So approximately around 95 kilometers over there. While the PYD, YPG is able to take, the Jarablus, but right now, there's the Turkey doesn't, they don't want to do PYD or YPG take those territoria to integrate all Rojava. So right now, of course, there's all those, the Rojava revolution was based on, because in Rojava, to be honest, in reality, there's no only Kurds. So there's a lot of different ethnic minority living there, and not only Muslim, and then different religious group living there as well. So from the Rojava, so what we can understand from Rojava, Rojava right now, I think so, there was the best picture. So if you are thinking about, or if the progressive forces of the United States or Western, anywhere, if you're thinking about, so what's our solution, what we have to offer to put towards, at least only one solution we have on hand is Rojava. It's a multi-ethnic, it's a secular, democratic, it's a gender equal, has a gender equal quota. So there's one of the offer a lot of hope for different Syria, different Middle East. So it can be success or no, definitely is not only issue of the Kurds or Rojava. I think so everyone around the world, progressive forces around the world should take responsibility, should take part of that revolution. And then, so that revolution can be a solution that we are looking for the new Middle East, secular, democratic Middle East. I think so there is from 2011 until now, the Arab Spring, what's going on over there. The complete picture we have on our hand is the Rojava, nothing else. Thank you so much.
Golala is going to discuss the situation in Iran and her own experience as a refugee and some of the organizing of protests in Washington, D.C. around these issues.
Hello, everyone. First, I would like to thank Red Emma for hosting us and for organizing. And thank you, everyone, for coming and listening to us. I love listening to Ruken and Omer going over the details and how the movement started, how it's sustaining, and the continuation of it. With me, I'm not going to go into details of the movements and the political aspect of it. I'm just going to share my experiences. First in Rojava and also my refugee days in Turkey. First thing I want to mention is, we keep referring Rojava, we throw these names at you, and I don't think we even mentioned it, what it really means in Kurdish. Rojava means sunset. Where sun sets, right? Rojava is east, where sun rises. Bakur is north and Bashur is south. Mentioning now that I've covered that, I'm going to briefly cover my childhood experiences in Rojava under the Islamic Republic of Iran. I've been in US for 20 years. I'm American. Been here more than half of my life, actually. But I still remember the days that I lived under the Islamic Republic. And remembering those memories and knowing what it means living under a theocracy. I really don't care what religion it is, as long as it's a theocracy, 50% of society will certainly lose their rights. From my days that I remember is gender apartheid, fear of going to school because you're a girl, you have to cover your hair, your body, everything practically head to toe in Islamic attire. They would even check your fingernails. So looking at those YPJ fighters, or defenders, as they would prefer to be called, I admire their courage because I know what's waiting for them if they don't defend themselves. The human rights that we cherish so much and we practically take granted in the West is going to be gone with the wind. With them, it's a matter of death or life. If they give up, they're going to be sexual slaves. They're going to be, there will be gallows in Iran with Kurds. If you look at any of the media covering the Middle East and Kurds in the Middle East, the highest population of people getting executed in Iran are the Kurdish people. The gallows are always active in Iran. I remember when I came to US, I would see cranes in the cities, construction. For me, cranes meant gallows. I hated cranes until I came to US. Because the only thing I would be seeing from them is a body hanging, usually a Kurdish person. You could tell by the clothing that they're wearing. Going to school. With girls, we take it granted that we go to school and we can wear whatever we want to. And there, first of all, it's gender apartheid. Schools are segregated. You go into school, they're going to check your nails. Don't have nail polish on it. Don't have long fingernails. Your hair should not be showing. Shoes, I remember my dad got me a nice pair of Nikes, white. As soon as I went to school, they made me color it black, because it's white. It's bright color, happy. No, you gotta wear black, brown, or gray. And I hope you're okay. So all those things that I remember from childhood is, as a woman, as a girl, your identity is stripped from you. You feel inferior. You don't have any control over your own body, what you do, what you wear, how you talk. Buses are segregated. Everything, actually. I remember we took a trip to the Caspian Sea. The sea is divided. I kid you not. There's a curtain going right down. I can't remember to how many meters. I was probably about 10 or 11 when we went there. Even the sea is divided. So I know what those girls are fighting against. I know what their future is going to be if they lose. And I hope, for the sake of humanity, I hope they win. Omer and Ruken covered the Rojava concept. Secular, democratic, inclusive of all minorities, and giving emphasis to gender equality, which is, as a woman, that's my top priority. Whenever I look at a movement, if I don't see women among the ranking officials, honestly, it's a no buyer for me. I'm not even gonna consider looking at their ideology. Covering the refugee days in Turkey. I lived in Turkey for 13 months. We arrived in Turkey as refugees from Rojava. We weren't in the Kurdish area. We ended up living in Ankara for a month, and then city close by. It was about an hour drive. And living there, it was in '94. So still, you couldn't say you're Kurdish. When you go to the police station, you were Persian. You would say, I'm Persian. You would speak Persian among yourself, just in case if they would hear you, they wouldn't know you're Kurdish. That 1 year of being a refugee in Turkey, you can't go to school. Your children cannot go to school. You don't have any rights, basically, no documents. Of course, like any other type of refugees or immigrants in any country, they're going to try to find a way to earn a living. And for us, there it was working black market, working for cash type of thing. You don't have any security. With us, I'm not sure if it has changed or not, but when we were there, Turkish police would get their taxes back on grocery shopping. So we would keep the receipt, because whenever they would see you, and they can spot, you can always spot someone who doesn't belong in a society. And they could spot you. They would ask you, do you have receipt? Fish varma, do you have a receipt? So always either have cigarettes with you or receipt. I can't tell you enough about the corruptness of Turkish police. So have those with you. Every day go to police station if you're above 18 to sign that, yes, I'm in the city, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm not trying to remember. I don't have many happy memories from Turkey. And even if I get free ticket, free vacation package to Turkey, no thank you, I'm gonna pass out on that. Actually ended up right now looking at the crisis, refugees flooding Kos Island. It breaks my heart. I actually did go to Kos a decade ago on vacation. Lovely people. Ended up getting so many free drinks. Was hungover for a week after. just because they would ask us, are you Kurdish? Yes, I'm Kurdish, Greeks, Kurds, bond over Turks. So they're lovely people, but I remember those mountains, and now I'm looking at refugees and what they're going through, looking at bodies washing ashore. I remember refugee days with Kurds from Bashur after Saddam, after US pulled out and Saddam was open to do as he pleases. We had lots of refugees in Rojava from Bashur who were fleeing away, and I remember we had 3 families in our house for 3 months, and we were sleeping like sardines in a 2-bedroom house. So when I see those pictures, it gives me the chills, it gives me the goosebumps. I was there. Fortunately, in my case, it wasn't as severe, but still the fear. Turkey was swapping refugees. Kurds from Iran who are in Turkey for Kurds from Turkey who are living in Iran. They would swap them. And my youngest brother at the time was 5 years old. He overheard my parents talking about deportations and how police at that time, mid-90s, they would actually, whenever refugees would go to sign their presence forms indicating I'm here, I have not gone anywhere, they would stick them into a bus, ship them to the border, and thanks to our brothers and sisters in Bakur, they would block the highways. But before people started organizing to stop these bus deportations, they were able to do a few deportations. And my parents were talking about, oh, this is still going on, we have to be careful when we go. And people, they didn't all want to go at the same time to sign their presence form because they didn't want to be there. Don't make it easy for the police to stick you on the bus. Go one at a time. If you don't come back within half an hour, everybody be cautious. Something is going on. And my youngest brother was asking my parents, what does deportation mean? And I jumped in, trying to be the big sister and solve the puzzle for him. I said, oh, it means we're going to go back home. He started jumping up and down, yay, I'm going to see my friends. Poor kid didn't know what deportation means. You go back to the Islamic Republic of Iran, once you have fled away from them, gallows, jail, no life at all. Another thing I would like to share with all of you guys is the life of a Kurdish person. As a Kurdish woman under the Islamic regime, you're fourth of a person. As a Kurd, you're half. Woman, you become fourth. As a Kurd in all of those 4 countries, you are going to suffer from a systematic, institutionalized oppression. You're second class. You don't have any equal rights to the rest of people. In school, when I was studying in Iran, they would teach us Arabic in school to learn the language of Islam, and they would teach you English to export Islam. I don't think anybody wants it, but and they wouldn't teach us Kurdish, our native language. My father would actually smuggle books from the Iraqi side of Kurdistan, sit down with all of his maniac behavior and racial cleansing against Kurds. He inherited a system from his predecessor, and Kurds in Iraq had more freedom than we did in Iran, Turkey, or Syria. And he would bring me books. That's how I started learning Kurdish. I never had formal education in my native language, yet I had to learn 2 other foreign languages. English worked out fine for me, but with Arabic, I would learn it enough to get my passing grade, just to get by, because I would rather know my native language. And right now, yeah, I would like to pick up my English and Arabic and Turkish, and so you can communicate with people with their native language. You can relate better. There are some phrases, there are some words, some things that if you say it in the native language, people relate to it much faster than if you go through the loopholes and barriers of translation. But at that time, no, it was forced on me. They didn't want to learn it. First language, as quote from Rojava, the first language that we would be taught was Persian, and then Arabic and English, nothing about Kurds and Kurdish language. In Turkey, it was even in '94, I couldn't even say I'm Kurdish. Syria, as heard from Ruken, they weren't even given identification. So systematic, constitutionalized oppression. With Kurds, I always try to relate our dilemma to how Jews suffered under Nazi regime in Europe. If you were Jewish during World War II, you could not help it but to get involved in politics, in survival, become a fighter, pick up a gun, defend yourself. You can't help it. There's no way. With me, I'm a chemist by trade. I'm a chemist, organic chemist, but I can't help it. Whenever there's something relating to Kurdish movement or women's rights, I can't help it but get involved with it. It's what makes humanity live on. If we don't care about what's going on with one another, I don't think we should be called human. If you don't get goosebumps by looking at other people suffering, if you don't get a tear in your eye, if your heart doesn't break, if you don't lose a night of sleep over it, and thinking, what can I do? How can I help these people? It's just me. I don't just raise awareness. Okay? Raise awareness. We're all citizens of the country. You vote, right? Those little tiny voices make a difference. Raise awareness. Talk about what's going on. With me, I wanted to share my story, my experience. And hopefully you're gonna share what I said to other people. Talk about gender apartheid, talk about systematic oppression, talk about exclusion of minorities, talk about how women are second class. All those things raise awareness. Many people honestly do not know. They don't. It's just sometimes ignorance is a bliss. You sleep easier, but let's burst that bubble. Let's raise awareness. Let's voice our concern as one body. Humanity, I look at it as one body, okay? I might be the heart, you might be the kidney, you might be the eyes, you might be the brain. All of us should function together. If one of us is not functioning, the entire body is going to suffer. And ignoring what's going on in other ends of the globe is going to get to you eventually. With the global village system going on right now, it's good because then we're aware of what's going on within minutes. When chemical bombing of Halabja happened, not many people became aware of it. Had it been now, there would be more uprising from people. When I came to US and we would talk about that, I was involved with student organizations and we would talk about the chemical bombing or what people are going through, and it's not just Kurds suffering. When you look at every single country, they always tend systematically, they always tend to oppress the minorities. And unfortunately, the ruling class doesn't really get that, they can't relate to it, and I kind of, if I put myself in their place, I would kind of understand. I mean, as a Turkish person, they are not oppressed because they're Turkish, and it takes self-education to become aware of what's going on. And like with the African American struggle in America, many people can relate to what's going on. But for me, I grew up under oppression. I can put myself under in anybody's shoes who is being oppressed, who is being looked at as second class. And all I can say is just raise awareness, talk about issues. And hopefully one day, I don't think I'll see it, but hopefully one day we're going to see peace in the Middle East. Thank you, everyone.
All right, I'm going to just sort of how things have changed really recently in Turkey and how that's become a dangerous situation, and then we'll move on to questions. This summer, there was a bombing in Surge, which is a refugee community where most of the refugees from Kobani went after the attack of the Islamic State. And recently there was a bombing in Surge of a group of socialists, a youth socialist organization from Turkey was going to cross the border and deliver some toys and build a library and work in a park. And Islamic folks bombed that gathering. So in response to that, Turkey suddenly said, we're going to get involved with the war in Syria. We can't have this. But what they decided to do when they're involved in the war is they dropped a couple bombs on the Islamic State. They then dropped more than 200 air sorties against the PKK in the Kandil Mountains in Iraq. Obviously people in Turkey, the Kurds in Turkey, didn't care for that either. They arrested about 24 Islamic State sympathizers in Turkey. They proceeded to arrest more than 2,000 Kurdish and leftist socialist activists throughout Turkey. So really, when they say Turkey has now joined the war on terror, Turkey has ended its ceasefire with the PKK and is now indiscriminately both attacking the PKK and anyone who's sympathetic to Kurdish or left-wing politics. Part of the reason of that is there was a big election this past June where the AKP, the ruling party, party of Recep Erdogan, lost their electoral majority because the Kurdish Socialist Party, HDP, finally crossed the electoral threshold and can participate in the Turkish parliament as a full party. So they managed to get 13% of the vote, which deprived AKP of their electoral majority, and also ruined the plans of Erdogan to increase his executive authority. So popular opinion is that he has ended the ceasefire with the PKK and begun to repress the Kurdish and socialist movement in Turkey as a way to win the elections that he just called for November 1st. So in response to all the repression of the activists and the bombings, many communities throughout Bakur have declared self-governance and autonomy. Two whole provinces, Dezrem and Hakkari. Numerous towns and neighborhoods, 3 neighborhoods in Istanbul have declared themselves autonomous because more than 1 million Kurds and quite a number of socialists live in Istanbul. The government's response to that has been to arrest all of the mayors. All of the democratically elected mayors that are in a party affiliated with the HDP, arrest them anytime someone declares self-governance. So it's become a really, really dangerous situation in Turkey, but also one that is potentially revolutionary as the situation is in Syria. So I'm going to have some questions. Can I see just a show of hands for people who are going to have questions to know how many there are going to be? Okay. All right. Ryan Harvey, you here? Can I borrow your hat?
What? Yeah.
Great. Ryan, why don't you start passing that hat around because we'd like to collect a donation to go to support the Kobani Reconstruction Fund. So chip in that if you'd like to do so that, and we'll take care of that. But also on your handout, you'll see on the page with the big map of Greater Kurdistan, there's 3 URLs there listed, Help Kobani.com, Rojava.com, and Hegasor. Help Kobani is part of the Kobani Reconstruction Fund to rebuild the city. While the YPG was able to defend it, the battle has pretty much destroyed the majority of the city, and in fact needs to be entirely reconstructed. So if you want to contribute to that, that's how you can do that. Raj Women is a feminist organization, a women's organization that, among other things, when the Yazidi relocated to refugee camps, Raj Women and folks send people down to talk to folks, find out about their problems, and get involved. It's a really strong organization to consider supporting. And finally, Hepasor, that's a Kurdish Red Crescent. They provide a lot of the on-the-ground medical support to people in Rojava and throughout Kurdistan. Another group I didn't have listed on there, Doctors Without Borders, should be mentioned because they've been involved in Rojava. They maintain a hospital and also have been very involved with the refugee crisis. So I also have a clipboard I'm going to circulate, which allows people to sign up, give us your information, and we'll tell you about future events that we're planning, whether they're fundraisers or, say, protests at the Turkish embassy or the White House or Congress, which is where I've met all these 3 people. So we're more than happy to have you there. Usually, the number of people who aren't Kurdish at this demonstration is about 3. So, it'd be really great if the left could turn out and show some support to this community when they organize and call people to support them. So, thank you.
And before we go to questions, I have 2 things to say. One is, first of all, before this starts dissipating, I really want to just give a giant hand to Flynn for organizing this and for the panelists who have just been tremendously wonderful. And the second thing is, this was a big room that was designed in the 1930s to sell fish, not to host public events. So if you don't mind, come on up to the microphone. If you're able to stand, come on up here, maybe form a line, and we can get some questions going.
First of all, just thank you guys so much for sharing. So my question is about the recent Turkish elections, and specifically the fact that the HDP finally was able to cross over the threshold. And I was wondering how, because I was under the impression that one of the reasons they were able to cross the threshold was that this was the first time they were running as a party, and weren't just running as a list of candidates that were independents. They were actually able to get a party together to have the system. So I was wondering how that reconciles with the autonomous ideology of Kurds in Turkey, and how participation in the Turkish government, how the decision to participate in Turkish elections as a party actually